How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Redneck Republican. I am Justin Wittmer-Mikesell, the Redneck Republican. So, the first episode, I came on and gave my endorsements for the primary election back on May 5th here in Indiana. So I figured today, it's been a few days since the election, so I kind of wanted to come on here and just give a little bit of my analysis of the whole ordeal. So first off, we'll take a look at the congressional races. In District 1, on the Democratic side, it was it was expected Frank Mervane was going to win renomination pretty easily there. And then on the Republican side, I really wasn't a big fan of any of these candidates, as I said before. I could tell the state party kind of gave up on the first district after redistricting failed, because you had Jennifer Ruth Green back out of it and all that. But it ended up being won by Barb Regnance, the Porter County Commissioner. I know she had the endorsement of Jim Banks, so she was pretty much the establishment candidate, so I'm not surprised. She won. Now, if I remember, I do think Jim Shank did win one of the counties by just a hair, but it was pretty easily a Barb Regnance win. In the second district was pretty cut and dry for the most part. Rudy Yakum was unopposed for the nomination, so he's going to get it again. And then on the Democratic side, it was between Jamie DCO and Sean Mayans, and Jamie DCO got it pretty easily. So, kind of expected for the most part, no surprises there. For the third district, Stutzman was going up against John Kenworthy. And it wasn't real close, but it wasn't like in a huge, like massive blowout. It was a little bit closer than I thought, but Stutzman still pretty easily got renominated. And then on the Democratic side, Kelly Thompson was unopposed, I believe. For the fourth district was interesting. On the Democratic side, it was won by Drew Cox. Little bit surprising, mainly just because I didn't know too much about him, but really the only candidate that I knew a lot about was Joe Mackey. I seen his interview on the John Rush, or not the John Rush show. I seen his interview on the Rob Kendall show. I knew he was kind of like a more moderate, middle of the road kind of Democrat, so I didn't really figure he was gonna win. So yeah, so Drew Cox took that one, and then this is what really surprised me. Now, I figured Jim Baird would probably win, just because of the fact of him being the incumbent and him having the money that he has, but I was surprised at how much he smoked Craig Haggard, and he smoked him. That kind of shocked me. And of course, you had John Piper in there as well, who actually did pretty decently for not having like any media coverage at all besides the Rob Kendall show. The fifth district was a little interesting. On the Democratic side, this was one where I was surprised at how much J.D. Ford smoked everybody else. Like, again, I'm not really surprised he won. With him being a state senator, he was obviously going to have the most name recognition and, establishment backing. But I thought Jackson Franklin was running a pretty good campaign. And you also had Deborah Pickett, who was the nominee last time around. So, and you had a few other people mixed in there, but, I mean, J.D. Ford ran away with that for the most part. So, and then on the Republican side, this is where it gets pathetic. I mean, Victoria Sparks was up against the guy, Scott King, I believe. And Scott King didn't have, like, a campaign website, didn't have much of a social media presence, didn't even file a campaign finance report, and he actually won a county. It's like, are we serious here? I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, Victoria Sparks, she's a bit of a kook. And I'm not saying that J.D. Ford is going to flip that seat in November, but I'm saying that he has a shot to flip that in November, if the atmosphere of the election is right, and if he plays his cards right, I think he has a shot to flip that. The 6th district, it was Cindy Worth who took that, and she was the nominee the past 2 election cycles, so not surprised. She's going to have the name recognition. And on the Republican side, again, a little bit pathetic for Jefferson Shreve. Now, he did win all of his counties, but it was just like in the 5th with the GOP. He ran a very close race with Sarah Jennings Brown. Sarah Jennings Brown had a heck of a campaign. She did a heck of a job. I mean, I think she should run again in 28, because I think he's shown that he is vulnerable. And, I've been hearing behind the scene, well, I think most people kind of know that Shreve was having either governor or Senate aspirations, and those are just gone with this. So, but I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, Shreve was a fake conservative, and he bought that seat. Just a pathetic performance from Jefferson Shreve. Then on to the 7th. This was one where Andre Carson pretty much ran away with it, and I kind of knew he would. If there was only one challenger to him, I thought it could be kind of close, but with 3, I knew it wasn't going to be that close. And then on the Republican side, Patrick McCauley, he ran away with it. I think this was the most lopsided election of all the primaries for Congress. But I mean, I'm again not surprised Felipe Rios did not have almost any of a campaign at all. So I knew Patrick McCauley was kind of the establishment candidate there. I know Josh Young was a big fan of him. I know Indy Reporter was not, which is kind of fun. Well, I don't know. All I know is he always said vote Felipe Rios just to piss off the establishment. So I just thought that was kind of funny. So anyway, for the 8th, Mesmer was unopposed. And then you had Mary Allen take that seat. And another one, I'm not really surprised. She was the only candidate that I ever heard much from. So no shock there. And then for me in the 9th, unfortunately, Houchin was unopposed. And then on the Democratic side, this is where it got interesting. You had the nominee from last year, Tim Peck, going up against Brad Meyer, who was portraying himself as a real progressive candidate. And then you had 2 more moderate candidates in Jim Graham and Kyle Rourke. I liked Kyle Rourke the best because, again, he was the more moderate candidate. Him and Graham, and the reason I liked him better than Graham was because of the fact that Graham was just a little bit too old, in my opinion, and Rourke has military experience and a military background. Rourke, he came in dead last place, didn't win a single county. Jim Graham actually won 2 counties. He won Switzerland and Scott County, and that doesn't shock me too much because in Switzerland and Scott County, you're going to have those more moderate Democrats. I mean, there are a decent amount of more moderate Democrats around these, like here in Switzerland County. The current judge is a Democrat, Greg Coy. And then, of course, the Scott County Sheriff is Jerry Gooden, the twin brother of Terry Gooden, the Democrat nominee for Lieutenant Governor back in 24. All of these guys, they are much more moderate Democrats. So I'm not really surprised. I'm not too shocked that Jim Graham was able to win a couple counties. Tim Peck did very well in Jefferson County, down in Madison. And I wasn't too shocked. I knew there was a lot of support for him down there. And he won his home county of Clark County. But for the most part, and it was a close election. It was only won by about 1,000 votes, I believe. But Brad Meyer did win the nomination. And I'm not too shocked. I mean, in most cases, I don't much agree with nominating someone who lost the previous cycle, and I do break that for Sarah Jennings Brown just because of the fact that her campaign started so late and she was only able to raise about $20,000. If she was able to run a full-fledged campaign like she would be able to do in 28, I think she has a real shot. But Tim Peck, you kind of knew what you're gonna get with him, and it wasn't anything special. For the Democrats, for the Brad Meyer does, like in primaries you have that where a more progressive, if it's not for the Democrat side, or if you're on a Republican side, the more conservative candidate does tend to win. You don't really have those like moderate candidates winning primaries too terribly much. Now, I think he probably is the worst candidate for the general election just because of how progressive he is. I mean, he's not anything like AOC, I don't believe. I know his whole thing is progressive values with practical solutions or something like that, something like that. But I think a candidate like Jim Graham or especially Kyle Rourke would have been a lot better in a general election, but. Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm going to support Brad Meyer or not, or if I'm going to support Tanya Hudson or Floyd Taylor, or just write in somebody. I have no idea. I mean, I'm really not a fan of any of these candidates, to be honest, so I might just write in somebody who I like, but for the general election. But anyway, that's it for the 9th District. On to the state Senate races. It was a bad night for incumbents for the most part. The only incumbents who won were Greg Good. He won pretty handily against Brenda Willis, but she was a bit of a kook. And then it seems that Liz Brown was able to win. But I was by a hair. They're probably gonna have to recount that. Same thing with Spencer Deary. So yeah, the two incumbents who voted against redistricting that seem to have won were definitely Greg Good and then maybe Spencer Deary. We're going to have to look at that again. But all those anti-MAGA Republicans are just the ones who voted against redistricting. The vast majority of them went down. And I'm not too surprised. I'm not too upset. I mean, I do respect them for being able to stand up to Trumpism. But a lot of these people had votes in the Senate that have done a lot of harm to our state. So, and with my anti-incumbency ideal, was I'm not too sad about them losing, to be honest. I think it's good to get someone new in there. The problem is the new people that are going to be going in there, I don't think are going to stand for anything much better than the ones we got out. So that's just where I come from on that. On the state reps, I really didn't follow any of those. Most of them around here didn't have any competition like mine. Alex Zimmerman and Garrett Bascom had no competition. Back on the state Senate, the one that I was following a lot, I was really hoping Joe Volk could beat Randy Maxwell, but he didn't in it. I mean, it was 60-40 pretty much, and that's decent for Joe Volk. I mean, going up against an incumbent in Randy Maxwell who had the entire establishment backing. I mean, we're talking Trump. We're talking Mike Braun. We're talking Jim Banks. We're talking Aaron Houchin. We're talking Madison Mayor Bob Courtney. We're talking like the Scott County Commissioners. I mean, it was a lot of establishment people backing this guy. There's probably more that I just can't think of offhand. So, I mean, to be able to beat him 60-40 shows that there are a lot of people unhappy with Maxwell, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. I'll probably end up supporting Maxwell in general just because Byron Holland doesn't do a whole lot for me. But I'm going to try to get in contact with Maxwell and kind of see if he can kind of ease a little bit of my anxieties about him a little bit. On to some local stuff. Some sheriff races. It was pretty much the establishment candidates winning all throughout. I mean, yeah, Dustin Stewart beat Roger Drew down over in Jackson County. You had Carl Pazanka beat Jason Wyatt in Dearborn. You had Clinton Earls beat Shannon Brown, Stephen Che, and Jimmy Parker in Switzerland. You had Ben Flint beat Mike Sims in Jefferson. The only one that was really interesting to me was down in Clark County, where incumbent Sheriff Scotty Maples actually got primaried by Kenny Kavanaugh. But that doesn't really shock me too much because with him being so closely connected with Jamie Knoll, I mean, I don't think it doesn't appear that Scotty Maples was involved in any of that stuff going on, but you just don't know with him being Noel's chief deputy. So, and you could I mean, it's obvious Clark County felt the same way I do about that, and they felt they needed to go in a different direction. Also in Jennings County, you had Cody Lau beat both Tom Webster, or you had Cody Lau in Jennings County beat Tom Webster, Rodney Liggett, and Casey Shelton. Not a big fan of either of those guys. I know Cody Lau is a fan of Diego Morales, so that's obviously not a fan of him in my book. But with him being the chief deputy to Kenny Freeman, I won't be supporting him at all. I'll probably end up supporting the Democrat Gary Driver in that for the November election. And then for more Ripley County stuff, had an incumbent Superior Court Judge Jeff Sharp easily win re-election against Chief Deputy Prosecutor Shane Tucker. I voted Shane Tucker, but I liked both candidates. So I think we're in a good spot there. Now for prosecutor, my guy Rick Hurdle, he was able to beat Frank Arkenberg. Now, of course, I like Rick Hurdle because he's the one who put away Jamie Knoll. But, I mean, it was getting intense here the past week. I mean, Frank Arkenberg really didn't start campaigning until like 2 weeks before the election. But he was going hard after Rick Hurdle for taking so many special prosecutor gigs. And the former sheriff of Ripley County, Tom Grills, he was going really hard at Rick Hurdle because there was something going on where a guy was charged with something, but he got off on a plea deal from Hurdle, and he's going to be getting out this summer, it seems. And Tom Grills is pretty convinced that this guy's going to come after him. So, I mean, when the former sheriff of the county was really going hard after a guy, I mean, that's going to carry some weight. But Hurdle won, I think it was like 1,900 votes to 1,300 votes, so it wasn't too terribly close, but it was closer than the judge election, that's for sure. And an interesting race from Ripley County was in Ripley County Council District 2. Brian Franklin primaried incumbent Stan Wiedemann by a decent amount, and I was kind of shocked about that. I mean, I know Brian Franklin's a pretty popular guy around here. They both are. So I thought Brian Franklin could primary Wiedemann, but I didn't think it'd be by as much as it was. And I think that's about it for the Indiana elections that I care to cover. Over in Ohio, really the only thing of note was, I mean, Ramaswamy pretty much beating the brakes off Casey Putsch, but I mean, everyone with a brain knew that was going to happen, so nothing too crazy with that. But yeah, I think that's about it. So with the primary now done, we now shift our focus to the party conventions in June. And obviously for us Republicans, for Secretary of State, it's going to be between Diego Morales, David Shelton, and Jamie Rittenauer. Any Republican with a working brain should be 100% behind David Shelton. I mean, people know pretty much everything wrong with Diego Morales, how corrupt and unethical he is. But one thing about Morales, I did not know this, but he was actually running for a delegate in Marion County, to be a convention delegate, and so that way he could vote for himself at the convention. Not only did he lose and not become a delegate, he got the brakes beat off him, and so did his wife. There were, I believe, about 18 people running for 6 delegate spots, and Diego Morales was supposedly about 12th out of 18. It's like, dang. I mean, the top 6 vote getters got like from 700 votes for the top guy, then the 6th person was like 600. Diego Morales got like 250 or somewhere in that range. I mean, it was bad. So if the people of Marion County don't even trust this guy to be a delegate, to be their voice at the Republican convention, how can we, as statewide Republicans, trust this guy to be our Secretary of State? I mean, it's just ridiculous. David Shelton needs to be the nominee. The most common sense nomination in the history of Indiana politics is David Shelton for Indiana Secretary of State for the Republicans. Full stop. Of course, for the Democratic side, it's going to be between Bo Bai and Blythe Potter. That's also a very common sense nomination for the Democrats. If they shoot themselves in the foot and nominate Blythe Potter, I'm going to laugh my ass off. I mean, they have a shot with a candidate who, young guy, good-looking guy, seems likable, no crazy scandals. I mean, the residency, and is he like, oh, is he a true Hoosier? I mean, that's a thing, right? But no, like, big-time crazy scandals about the guy, Marine Corps veteran, and obviously with the last name Bai, a pretty respected name. I mean, some people have problems with the Bais, but I mean, a lot of people do respect the Bai name. I mean, why wouldn't you nominate the guy? Oh, he takes a lot of establishment money. Who cares? If this is Republicans, okay, fine, but for the Democrats of Indiana who haven't won anything meaningful in forever, it's like you take what you can get. It's ridiculous. But yeah, back to the Republicans, David Shelton or bust. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. But anyway, that I don't think there's anything else really that needs to be talked about. So I think the next video, that'll be it for this video. The next video I'm going to make, I think I'm going to be doing some deep dives into some politicians like Aaron Houchin or Jefferson Shreve or Diego Morales, maybe even people like Mike Braun or Michael Beck, with pretty much all these establishment politicians in Indiana, as to why I think they're not good for Indiana. I'll kind of give you my opinions on them, and also I'll bring the receipts of why I don't think they are good conservatives. But the first one I think is going to be Aaron Houchin. She's going to be the first one that I go hard at, since she is my representative. And I've said before on my Twitter that I'm embarrassed to be represented by her. I wish I had an actual conservative Republican representing me. But anyway, that's another topic for another time. So, with that being said, I thank you guys for watching this video. If you made it this far, if you like what you've watched today, if you like me, what I have to say, feel free to subscribe, click the like button, and comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts of what you think I do great, or what you think I do horrible. Either or. I welcome all comments. So anyway, that'll be it for today, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching.